T minus 2 minutes. T minus 1 minute. T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds.
Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hey everybody, how's it going? I figured today I would do a little bit of a live stream. It's been a while. I was gone for most of May out traveling around and stuff, so I much harder to live stream while out doing that type of thing. So I want to discuss just kind of what we've seen in a otherwise pretty nuts week of crypto. Obviously we had a little bit of momentum. It felt like some of that momentum was taken away from us with some of the billionaires fighting and having some otherwise, in my opinion, petty disagreements, things like that. So I want to just kind of hang out with you guys, chat a little bit, talk about what we're seeing. We have seen Bitcoin make a pretty interesting move, which does give me hope that we could be seeing an alt season come. So obviously major impacts for ICP, SUI, XRP, Pi, a lot of these ones that we do talk about fairly regularly on the channel. I think this will probably be like probably apply to more altcoins or more widely the altcoin market. But obviously I focus on kind of the ones that I like to talk about on the channel. So we'll go through things like that, kind of go over what we're seeing there. And then if you have any questions or want to discuss anything like that, obviously we can do that. Hey, Paul, Jason, Vikey, good to see you guys all online. I appreciate all the comments. I like. This is part of the reason I do like doing live streaming. It feels a little bit more interactive and, like we all get to hang out and things like that. So, Jason, Tyler's lying to you. We'll actually just lead it off with that. Not financial advice, all that good type of stuff. This is just my opinion. I am more than entitled to be wrong. So it is possible. Anything is possible. So we'll just be going through, kind of looking at kind of the market where things are at. I'm actually going to pull up TradingView and get the total 2 market going right now, because the total 2, in my opinion, is incredibly important for understanding kind of what we could be seeing out of crypto, particularly the alts. So we'll be talking about that. Things are looking a little bit better there. We're seeing a lot of things that could hopefully be good for us in our hopes of an alt season. So you guys are funny. But anyway, cool. Well, let's go on ahead. We'll pull this onto stage. We'll start out with total 2, and then we'll roll through a couple of different things. So with the total 2, we can see things are looking good. We kind of made this nice run up. This is also when we saw Bitcoin kind of make that run. Since then, we obviously ran into this really difficult liquidity zone. We were talking about this kind of back in December and January. This is a really hot spot, both down here as well as up here, in terms of It's going to be difficult to break above here because this is kind of like the altcoin all-time highs right here. This is what we hit all the way back in 2021. So this is going to be a very, very challenging place to break through. We obviously ran up in December, January when we kind of ran into that, and then have since kind of ran down all the way back into some of these lows here. And so now what we started to see is when we had a little bit of this rebound here, is we figured this was going to be a little bit of a difficult place to break through because obviously it offered us a ton of support in that December and January timeframe. And of course, we did get rejected 4 times here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we've come back down. We've bounced a little bit off of this area again, and the other box that we'd kind of put in here. We're now coming back up, which is good. Our hopes at an alt rotation. Again, I think we're a ways off of alt season. I'll be clear with that right now, but our hopes might be a little bit saved here in terms of we could have a little bit of an alt rotation. We are kind of bouncing off of here. Obviously, the next point will be getting back above this range here because you could see it offered us a decent bit of support. And then after that, a little bit further up, we are going to have this level of resistance. If we can pass through this zone of resistance, then I think it's time that we can start getting excited. Until we get through here, going to be a little bit difficult. So let's see what we got. Yeah, I appreciate all you guys joining. You're all funny, and I appreciate all the comments. Ronnie, hearts to you as well. Also, guys, if you would be so kind, if you just want to go leave a like, help push the stream out to more people. We can get more people on the channel, answer more questions, do all that type of stuff, and also learn about crypto on this nice Saturday afternoon, evening, morning, depending on where you are. So anyway, for me, it is the afternoon, but obviously I know that there are people everywhere that watch this stuff. So moving along and kind of back into what we've seen out of crypto. So there's 2 things, and there's actually, we'll go check this out next. We can see kind of a nice bounce back into here. This, I think, is where we could start to see the first level of like, things are getting a little bit exciting maybe. And then of course, we'll actually just drag this all the way out to kind of where we are now. This is the point at which things could get really exciting because we've now officially broken all-time highs for altcoins. So this would obviously be a very momentous event, and you better believe it. As soon as this does happen, you'll hear about it everywhere, all over Twitter. Probably not mainstream media too much, just because they don't really track stuff like this too much. But we can see that would be a pretty momentous event. Now, one thing that we haven't seen so far, and the reason why we haven't, in my opinion, gotten from here up into this range is if we go back and we look at the fear and greed index, we can see back in March when we saw alts kind of make their first rotation. We'll go back a little bit, nothing too crazy here, but we saw this really, really strong move up in March, hit this range, and obviously things came back down a little bit. But when we saw this really strong move up, we saw the fear and greed index at the same exact time jump into extreme greed. Now, of course, we came back down for several months, jumped into extreme fear, even just momentarily jumped through, all the various stages of the fear and greed index. And then you can see here, we jump right back up in November, December, and even parts and pieces in January. Well, what do we see in November, December, and parts and pieces of January? Exactly this. So what we can see is we have had a little bit of a run here out of alts, but nothing near the scale that we saw here and nothing near the scale that we saw here. If we're going to actually put some numbers to it, we can see kind of from bottom to top, we did about 81% on this move. Now, bottom to top from here, we did about, what did we do? About 91%. Okay, well, from here, bottom to top, we have done about 50%. So again, not anything too bad, but not near the scale that we've seen kind of on these other 2 runs where we start to peak into that extreme greed. That is kind of what we're missing, at least up until this point. So that's kind of how things are looking so far. Let's see what we got. ETH has been flexing its 8 packs. Yeah, we haven't seen too much out of ETH recently. I mean, obviously we're seeing it recover a little bit, which is of course really good. But yeah, I think hopefully we can still see more out of ETH. I do think that there is going to be something happening with ETH soon. We'll have to see. Maybe that's just me coping. I don't know. We'll have to see. But yeah, let's see. End of September, alt season. I think if we see an alt season, it's probably most likely going to be Q3, Q4. However, The only thing when I kind of hear this type of thing is I think there's a lot of people that expect kind of an end of September, November, December type of alt season, in which case, yeah, that would be fantastic. But usually if everybody expects it, that's not going to happen. So I try and look for some possible alternatives that could potentially catch people by surprise. Something that I think could catch people by surprise. Now, let me be clear. I don't actually think we're set up in a position for this to realistically happen, but something that would catch people by surprise is an alt season in the middle of summer. That's been relatively rare. I don't think we've really seen it too much since like DeFi summer, which happened in like, I don't even know, was it like 2020? It was a long time ago. So we haven't really seen it in quite some time. So I do usually try to look for some alternatives there, because usually if there's a majority of people saying something, I get a little bit skeptical, just because I don't know. You guys have seen my success with the liquidations chart, right? And that is essentially predicting price moving the opposite of what everybody's thinking it will. And we've been very, very successful with that. And so that's usually why I kind of try and keep that in mind. Limbo Baggins. I like the name change. Yep. Doing a live thing. It's been, I think, like over a month since I've done one. I need to get more consistent at doing these on a more regular basis. So I figured I'd do one today. And just kind of recap the week of what we've seen, all the insanity and chaos that's happened over the last week. And then we can go into the next week and what we could see kind of going forward. So let's see, Bitcoin dominance still high, 100%. I think until we start, and actually we will get to Bitcoin dominance, Jason. So don't worry there. If I forget, remind me, because yeah, there definitely is a lot to talk about with there. I am not saying that we can get an alt season tomorrow. I wish we could get an alt season tomorrow. I don't think we will, though, unfortunately. I think there's kind of some things that need to be in place for something like that to happen. Right now, retail sentiment pretty bad. Liquidity is okay, I guess, maybe. We do have kind of that like trailing chart. Maybe you guys have seen me post about it on X, where there's that kind of that liquidity. And I mean, I'm not the only one posting about it. There's a ton of people that post about it, but it's like you offset global M2 by 100 days, and it like Bitcoin basically follows it exactly. That's showing that we could see a really strong movement in price. My general theory and thesis for alt season has generally been that like people want to see price do well. Obviously, I mean, that's like, wow, right? But the really thing that's important with that is so far we have seen Bitcoin hit new all-time highs, which is great. We have seen Bitcoin do relatively well, particularly over the past year relative to everything else. The problem is, though, is that we haven't seen anything coming out of Bitcoin that's like, oh my gosh, that's crazy, right? I mean, like, yeah, 100K is cool. I think it's cool more from like a milestone perspective rather than like, wow, I've just made so much money, right? Like if you think about 2017, Bitcoin went from like, $800 to like 20 grand in the span of like a year. If you look at 2021, it went from, well, I guess this is going to be a little bit longer time frame, but it went from like 3 grand to like 60 in the span of like 18 months to 2 years. Absolutely wild gains. Now, of course, we did have a bottom about 3 years ago at this point. Yeah, I think it's about 3 years ago, where we were hitting down into like the high teens. But we've seen, us hit like 110 kind of being the high, a little bit higher than that. That's good, but that's not anything wild, right? And so I think like we've gotten to the point where people have seen some pretty inspiring gains, but not anything that's like you're going to go tell all your friends about. And so that to me, I think is kind of the main reason why we haven't seen like a full on alt season yet, is we haven't seen just like some stupid gains happening. And realistically, I think the closest that we got to it was when meme coins were happening, because meme coins, people were making a stupid amount of money. And that realistically, in my mind, did result in an alt season for the kind of the Solana ecosystem. But we also did see a lot of liquidity get sucked out of the system via pump.fun. And so I made a video on that a couple days ago about how that, kind of sucked a little bit of the liquidity out, may have potentially tamped down on an alt season, potentially just because the value extractive methods were far more efficient this go around. And so it never kind of let that momentum really run too hard. So Anyway, not my thoughts. So we'll see an alt season tomorrow, but I do think we could still be on that path. We'll also be talking about Bitcoin price making a pretty decent move, which I do think kind of saves us potentially some really good, or it saves our hopes of potentially having an alt rotation. So we'll get into that here in a second. Hey Ronald, how's it going? Let's see. Yeah. Hey, Vikey. Jason, let's say, do you think Trump and China meeting on Monday in London will pump the market? It's my guess. So there's two things here. So first thing is it depends on what comes out of that, right? Because if what comes out of that is, so we've agreed on this whole, this holistic trading resolution between the US and China, and it's going to be no tariffs, and China's going to open up the US market to, or, open up the Chinese market to US companies, which realistically has not been the case this far, then yeah, I think the markets will absolutely nuts. And I think that this will actually happen, not even just for crypto, I think it will happen for all the markets. Now, what do we think the probabilities of that are? I think the probabilities of that are pretty low, getting some type of resolution like that, right? Now, if we get the other resolution, which is, okay, we're doing full-on trade embargoes, US and Chinese can't trade with each other at all, that, of course, would move us in the opposite direction. Again, I think that's also unlikely, but both of those are kind of some outcomes that could be very, very wild in terms of kind of outcomes in crypto, stock market, all that type of stuff. So the way I'm looking at it is, yes, it could move the market. How much, when, where, all that type of stuff, don't know. I think maybe leading into it, we could see a little bit of a pump or potentially a little bit of a dump, depending on kind of what the sentiment is. If I had to guess, people in crypto are usually more positive and bullish sentiment. So I would imagine it'd probably be a pump more likely than a dump. But I don't know, the market moves in weird ways, and I really don't try to predict or pretend to know which direction some of this stuff could go, because a lot of it is market makers doing weird things too, because they know people are going to be trying to speculate on certain moves. So I try to stay out of some of that type of stuff, because to me that's more akin to gambling than anything else. But yeah, it really just depends on the outcome. I think if the outcome's positive, then yes, the markets will go nuts, and that is potentially an outcome in which we could see an alt season in the middle of the summer, because we've kind of accelerated that timeline of all the certainty and good news and all that type of stuff. So yeah, if they make a good deal, yep, yeah, I completely agree here. One other thing that I want to talk about today is a potentially secret bull run that could be happening as it affects crypto, but it's not in crypto. So we'll be getting into that here in a second too, but let's just not get ahead of ourselves. Let's actually go on ahead and do a quick overview of the market here. Let's see. I know Shadowplay, what do you think will happen when they launch Caffeine AI? Yes, definitely want to talk about this too. We'll definitely for sure talk about this. There's so much to talk about today. So we'll talk about, this is a very wild week in crypto. So just so much going on. I'll move that so this is a little bit bigger, but we can see here, pretty nice move on the day here. A lot of our big coins that we spend a decent bit of time talking about. ICP up almost 5%, Pi over 5%. See Caspa here 4%. We got Ethereum up 1%, not too bad, decent-ish. We got Ondo about 4%, so that's good. Basically everything here is sweet, 2%. Jasmine, it's been a minute since we talked about Jasmine, but that one's doing all right too. Overall, basically everything is good. We've got XDC, GT, and Pol. Looks like the only three. And I guess we've got, what is this, Flare? Oh no, Fast Token. Okay, so that's another one that, it looks like those are the four that are negative here. So overall, a pretty nice day. However, the week's still red, but though we are getting some more kind of, some greens kind of trickled in here, which is good. So overall, I think the market's looking fairly decent here. If we do look at Bitcoin, this is the thing I did want to show you guys as well, is we had started to kind of go down this path of lower highs, lower lows, and we had this kind of trend line that we were kind of fighting against. We have broken through that trend line. Hopefully that momentum continues. This, in my opinion, is a really, really good thing. This is what I was talking about earlier about potentially saving some of our bags in terms of hopes of alt season, because if we were to continue to bleed, obviously that would have been very, very damaging for altcoins. having this little bit of positive momentum means that we could potentially keep the Bitcoin train rolling. And then of course is very, very good for altcoins. If we go back and look here, I mean, we can see Bitcoin struggled a little bit. It's about even. And since then we've seen a lot of these alts start to bleed a little bit. We have a couple up here and there. Obviously memes do what memes do. And we have some others, ICP going up because of the great news from Caffeine. We'll talk about that. That one's been really, I was pretty impressed. I'm not going to lie. I think some people think I'm an ICP mega bull or whatever. I like to think I'm pretty measured, but yeah, the ICP Caffeine AI demo was pretty impressive. So we'll be talking about that here in a second as well. But overall, we can see, things looking decent here. Let's actually roll over to Ethereum as well. We can get a quick look on what we're seeing out of Ethereum. Ethereum, similar type of thing. We're actually seeing something a little bit different from Ethereum, which we talked about this in a couple of days video ago, I think, where we're really starting to see the Bollinger Band squeeze here. We can see the break. Now they're really squeezing. And so what this has typically meant is that there's going to be a bout of volatility. What type of volatility, when, where, all that type of stuff, we don't know for sure. But usually what it means is, well, actually, let's just look at some historical examples. Here, we see price consolidate. Boom, we see the volatility. We see Bollinger Band squeeze, and then it just blows out the bottom. And then we actually see, this is where that major rundown was. We go back a little bit further into the past. We can see here, same type of thing, break down. Same type of thing a little bit here, and then we saw that break up. If we go, let's even see this type of thing. We saw the Bollinger Band squeeze, and then it kind of started to kind of roll out a little bit. There's a whole bunch of this stuff where you can see over time, where as these Bollinger Bands kind of go wide and then they start to squeeze, you can kind of see this as well with price. Price kind of becomes locked within a relatively tight range, and then it usually makes a move after that. So there's a lot of kind of like historical precedent for this. And so I would say, and again, we don't know, like this isn't to say, oh, just because we see this, it's going to explode. We don't know that. It could explode to the downside, just like we saw here. So it's not a guarantee at which direction it's going to go. But this does usually mean that there's some level of volatility coming. So that is something that I have been watching very, very closely. Actually, I thought when we saw this candle that this kind of might have been it. And you could see the Bollinger Band start to kind of peel out a little bit, but we have very quickly pulled right back up into the range. So I had thought that this could have been it, and I was half tempted to take a short. Glad I didn't, but we'll just have to see here. Obviously, there's a lot of things kind of moving behind the scenes as it relates to Ethereum, so that could be good too. So let's go and let's actually let me take a look. Triple top on Bitcoin in a 15-minute. Yeah, I usually don't look at the smaller time frames, usually just because they're very good to predict kind of some shorter term moves. But I feel like for longer term moves, they don't really help too much. But yeah, let's just take a look here. Might be on this shorter time frame. I don't know. I don't really look at 15 minutes because I frankly don't really know what I'm looking at too often. So I'm assuming it's probably maybe 1, 2, 3. But I don't know. We've got stuff going on back over here too. So anyway, but yeah, we can see a definitely like a nice rebound coming from Bitcoin. So we'll have to see kind of what happens next. But the next thing that I did want to take a quick look at here is let's go and do Bitcoin dominance. Because Bitcoin dominance is another thing that we have to keep a very close eye on, because realistically, until this changes, I'm not expecting anything too crazy to happen. So if we take a look here, let's pull this down a little bit. We can draw this up, just kind of extend it. We just keep extending it because it keeps following the same trend line. Has been ever since basically the end of 2023. So we can zoom in here. We've not discussed ICP already. We will be getting into that. So yeah, for anybody who's wanting to hear more about ICP, we'll get there. I'm essentially right now just talking about the altcoin market generally, and then we'll kind of move it down, talk about ICP, SUI, Pi, XRP, some of the main ones that we like to talk about on the channel here. We can see here, obviously, we had this breakdown. This was in that November, December, January timeframe. Obviously, we've come back up. We've fallen right back into this ascending trend line. Realistically, it's my opinion that we're not going to see any alts do anything that impressive until we start to break this Bitcoin dominance trend line. I think this is going to be kind of led by probably some of the bigger guys. So, XRP, Solana, Ethereum, BNB, maybe Cardano, things like that. And then obviously when we start to break this, that's where we'll start to see an altcoin season start to come around. But what we can see, and this is something that I'd mentioned in a couple of my recent videos, is the lows that we saw, even from this little bit of like a pullback in the Bitcoin dominance, the lows actually were still higher than the highs that we saw prior to this little bit of an alt run that we saw in like November, December timeframe. So Bitcoin's still very, very strong. I think the institutions, like this could very realistically be an institutional cycle where we see everything kind of run through Bitcoin and some of the larger cryptos. Now, one of the things kind of segueing into that, oops, actually I'm using my recording hotkeys. Oops. But so anyway, one of the things that we actually have seen recently that nobody's really focused on, which I think is pretty interesting, and this is something I was actually looking very, very intently toward, is the Circle IPO. So Circle, for those of you who don't know, is the issuer of USDC, and the IPO I thought was going to be very, very interesting to see what kind of interest we would be getting from more TradFi investors, right? And so for those of you who don't know, absolutely insane absolutely insane work coming out of that Circle IPO. Really, really nuts stuff. It's almost 4x in like 3 days. It already, like when it was coming into the IPO, was like 30 or 25 or 30x oversubscribed. The Circle IPO has just been absolutely insane. And so this is kind of one of those alternative theories that I've had kind of in the background that, frankly, the Circle IPO made me a little bit more bullish and confident on, was we've actually seen something happen here that is indicating that this could realistically be an institution run, right? So we're not going to be seeing, maybe we'll see meme coins coming here and there, things like that, but we're not going to really be seeing anything that's like, oh, well, this is a thing that does this for so-and-so and whatever else. Yeah, like we might get some runs out of that, but realistically, what we're going to be seeing is institutional adoption, institutional buying pressure, institutional appetites on stuff. Now, usually what that means is, of course, institutions have a ton of money, but usually institutions aren't going in and dropping an ICO, right? I mean, stable coins is huge business. From what I've seen, stable coins is like the thing in crypto that institutions are trying to get their hands on. That's why there's like 1,001 different stable coins being launched like every day. There's a lot of that type of stuff happening. And so, to me, I think it's going to be really, really important to see how some of this stuff goes. We might be seeing more stablecoin issuers IPOing. We've already started to see a lot of companies kind of start to do that, like the MicroStrategy approach effectively, where we're seeing things or where we're seeing like companies adopt Bitcoin on their balance sheet. That's becoming more attractive. There's a lot of that type of stuff that I think we could be seeing that adoption. So again, maybe not necessarily the best news for like a traditional alt season as we expect it, but it's always really important to make sure that you're being flexible and you're understanding where the opportunity is. And right now it could realistically be that the opportunities, it could be through some more of these institutional plays. And I also do think that's where we could see potentially things like ICP. Again, this might be a bit of a reach for some, but this is where we could see things like ICP. Obviously, ICP is making, or at least attempting to make, a lot of inroads with governments and institutions and programs and things like that. And that could potentially be really good for those types of projects. Chainlink is another one, Ondo's another. So there are a lot of these types of crypto plays that are trying to kind of make inroads with some of these institutions. And I'm pretty confident it will probably do relatively well for a lot of these if this is kind of the institutional play that we end up seeing. So let's see. ICP has not yet been discussed. We can pull into that here in a second. There was one other thing. I can't remember. There's another thing I said I wanted to talk about. If anyone remembers what it was and wants to hear about it, let me know. Otherwise, let's actually just roll on into ICP right now and we can discuss it. This is something where it's going to be very, very difficult to really understand what's happening with ICP right now, just because, in my opinion, given that we're on kind of like that timeline for the caffeine release, price doesn't really matter at this point in time, because I think if it goes well, I think price is going to absolutely rocket. I think if it goes poorly, price is going to absolutely tank. I don't really think there's much in between. I could be wrong. We'll see, but I don't know that there's going to be a lot of in between, because a lot of people who are, kind of remain bullish and are very positive and optimistic on ICP look toward things like caffeine to kind of give some of that optimism, and the people who are bearish are already bearish, and they're only going to be that much more bearish if things like that kind of continue to happen. So and things like that meaning over promising, under delivering, things like that. So let's see, Mitch, because there is less retail in the market right now, do you expect to have less of a profit taking pullback over the summer? Probably. I mean, anything can happen, right? But usually when there's less volatility, when there's less speculation, when there's less all of that type of stuff, usually it's like the highs are less high, but the lows are also less low. The only caveat with that, though, is, for some of the holders that may not have the most conviction, they may want to kind of transition away from some of their holdings. And if there's no kind of new buyers or new optimism, we're not going to have people adding to their positions. We're not gonna have new people entering positions, things like that. So I think it will have less of a profit taking summer, but also if things aren't exciting, we may have people selling out, trying to look for the next shiny object. Because keep in mind, there is a decent contingent of people in crypto who are basically there for kind of like the day trading, gambling type of stuff. Think about the same people who are trading, like options, like those are the types of people that we also have in crypto as well, because they're looking for the volatility, they're looking for the major gainers. Also major losers do come along with that, but that's kind of how that goes. So let's actually go ahead and we'll get back into ICP real quick. We'll talk about kind of what we're seeing here from price. Obviously this is 15 minutes. Let's just go to daily. Obviously what we're seeing from ICP is okay. It's not great. It's okay. We're obviously here kind of pushing lows. This is kind of a major support that we have held on to several different times now in kind of the recent past, which is good. We obviously did dip a little bit below this, it was this like mid-April area. So that was something where, we didn't get a whole bunch of, we had the support here, kind of down at this range, but we did actually drop below this key level of support, because we could see this actually right here. I think actually this is the main level, but yeah, so it was good that we kind of have held this recently, because again, if we were pushing down into this level, again, it would be more weakness that we're showing, which would not be great. But it seems to be, we have found kind of a pretty strong level of support here. And so hopefully we'll start to see some optimism kind of running up over the next little while in anticipation of the caffeine launch. Obviously, if the caffeine launch goes well, ICP price will do very well. We will also be seeing the cycle burn rate continue to increase, which again, always a good thing. For those of you who may not be super familiar with ICP, essentially how their ecosystem works is they have the cycle burn rate. So if you want to do anything on the internet computer protocol, you need to essentially spend cycles. And that's like gas, but it's like if the internet had a gas fee, which it does, but we don't really see it. Anyway, we won't get into that. But this is essentially like the gas fee to use the internet computer protocol. And the gas is paid for by ICP. Now, the thing that is cool, though, is the gas fee is not actually directly related to the ICP price. So let's just say ICP would be at 1000x tomorrow. It's not like the ICP or like the internet computer protocol gets 1000x more expensive to use. And so they've actually had some really, really great ingenuity, I guess we could say, in terms of like making sure that like the good thing for the holders is also not a bad thing for the actual users. So that's a really, really good thing in my mind. What we have seen here is obviously prices holding up, and we haven't actually seen things get quite deflationary yet. And so if caffeine does well, I would be almost certain that that would push ICP into a deflationary type of regime. Let me actually move this a bit so we can get the screen a bit bigger. But I would be almost certain that this pushes ICP into a little bit more of like a a deflationary regime, which is going to be massive for the coin. I think that's going to be truly huge. That, in my opinion, both via speculation as well as pure just deflation mechanics. Though I will note, I don't actually think the deflation mechanics will be that meaningful, to be completely honest. But that doesn't matter, right? I think that the indication and the optimism that we are actually deflationary is going to be very, very valuable for the ICP ecosystem. I think Caffeine AI could be quite pivotal for the Internet Computer Protocol. We'll just have to see how it goes, right? I mean, for those of you who saw the demo, if you didn't, just watch my most recent ICP video. I go through and I essentially kind of condense and chop down the demo a little bit so you can kind of get a TLDR type of version. It's pretty impressive. For those of you who haven't seen it or don't want to look or whatever, I'll just give you a super quick rundown. Basically, Dominic Williams, who is the chairman of Dfinity, which is the main entity that works on the Internet Computer Protocol, he was essentially building, I think, 5 apps at once through using just natural language. And the app was going in and it was coding everything, it was debugging it. It was building it out in different tabs. So for those of you who are familiar with coding, when you use ChatGPT, it's a little bit too simple because it'll just run all of your code in one script, which is not how normal coders do it. But then if you use something like Cursor, you need to have a generally better sense of how to actually code, because it's really just coding assisting. So it's since it's coding assisting, you still need to know how to code. Where Caffeine is very much, it's just natural language processing, which is super cool. And it also handles the hosting, because again, it's posting it directly onto the ICP network. The ICP network has the HTTPS integration and stuff. So it's really it's super, super crisp, super clean. Again, people fudge with their demos a little bit, right? And so I'm sure there's going to be some level of nuance there where there might actually be issues and there might be bugs and things that we have to work with. My main question is, how big is that gap, right? Because almost certainly every time somebody does a demo, they've kind of fudged with it a little bit. Some is really egregious and aggressive, and some is not that bad at all. So I'm really going to be quite interested to see where on the scale we end up with Caffeine AI, because I do genuinely believe if this thing works exactly as showcased in the Internet Computer Days, or whatever they called that, that would be a viral product akin to Cursor. Cursor obviously has done incredibly well. It's basically been from zero to a household name or a household adjacent name in 18 months. So I think Caffeine would be incredibly similar to that, and it would be probably the first true mass market app that's come out of crypto, and it would be probably the second true mass market product coming out of crypto. I would say stablecoins would be the first. So really, really interested to see how things go there. But of course, there are still a lot of questions to answer. I've signed up for Caffeine. We'll see how it all ends up working out and things like that. But Tyler's around. What's up? Yeah, we're just yapping about crypto and all the alts and all the things. So yeah, let's see. There will be bugs, but will work itself out pretty quick. It will learn fast. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm expecting as well. I just want to make sure, or I'm a little nervous that the bugs make it unusable, right? Because I think even if it's similar or even incrementally better than a Cursor or a ChatGPT or something like that, that's going to be a complete game changer for Internet Computer and all that type of stuff. So that's mainly what I'm looking at, is what's the gap between reality and what they showcased. So, because I've seen some demos before in the past, not obviously nothing from Internet Computer that I've seen, but I have seen some demos in the past in crypto, outside of crypto, all that type of stuff, where they show a demo and then you actually get the product in your hands and you're like, well, what is this? So yeah, really interesting. Tyler, you got to send me your card on who you're betting for in the UFC. I'm going to go bet on everybody opposite. For those of you who don't know, Tyler apparently is really, really good at picking the wrong person to win on betting and stuff. So maybe Tyler, you can just post it here and we'll all make some quick cash. but that would be good. But yeah, so anyway, that's where we're at with ICP and where we're seeing, or where I see that coming, or where that going over the next 30 to 60 days probably. So that's kind of where I'm looking at. I am definitely like, I left watching the demo day for Caffeine very encouraged. I was honestly pretty impressed. He's like simultaneously coding like 5 different apps. All, you know, they're going through, coming up with their own checklists. They're going, you know, doing all the things that they're supposed to. Honestly, really impressive. So I'm very excited to get my hands on it and see what we get out of it. So let's see. Well, just do it for us and then just post your card and then we can all make money. You won't, but you know, for the greater good. But yeah, the reverse Tyler strategy. Yeah. So yeah, Tyler's like the Jim Cramer of sports betting, apparently. So yeah, that's where I keep trying to get him to tell me who he's betting for, and I just do the opposite. But haven't seen anything yet. So, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at with ICP. Let's go take a quick look at SUI, and then we can also take a quick look at Pi, and then we'll probably round off with XRP. But I mean, SUI's been one that's just been absolutely smashing. We've seen a little bit of some kind of trailing off over the past probably several weeks, but I mean, it's just been absolutely crushing. So let's take a look at that. Bye. Well, sorry to call you out on live stream, but yeah, later, man. Enjoy the UFC fights and all that type of good stuff. Let's see. We beat Solana, SUI, and Avalanche in all matches except block time and finality. Surpassed Sol and SUI in real-time TPS. Yeah, no, I agree. And like, this is not to be critical. Well, here, let me pull this off for 1 second, and we'll go back into SUI. But this is not to be critical of ICP at all. I think by the metrics, they do a very, very good job. The only problem is there's just no real adoption quite yet. And that's why I'm actually very excited for Caffeine, because this, to me, feels like this could be kind of the first attempt at some like real users, some real adoption, things that would be very, very meaningful, not even just for ICP. Because let's be completely honest, like most of crypto doesn't have any real adoption, right? I mean, like we look at SUI right now. I mean, they're starting to make some pretty nice like partnerships with like real world companies. But if you go around and ask anybody, like, what does SUI do? It's like, well, they are a token that has made money so far and has a couple meme coins on it and a couple exchanges. Like, again, not to undersell SUI, like it's done very, very well so far, but its ecosystem is still incredibly immature. Even if we look at kind of like the staples like Solana and ETH, like there's not a ton of like mass market adoption. We have seen adoption, obviously, like, you know, there's people who use NFTs, there's people who use DeFi, there's people who use all the other things. I mean, stable coins are very, very, very valuable. I mean, basically, like the entire Tron ecosystem is built exclusively around stable coins. So there is adoption and usage that's happening, but in my mind, like stable coins are probably like the widest or largest or most adopted thing in all of crypto. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. I 100% agree. I think the tech is good. That's why I personally own ICP, because I do think the tech is good and it's worth the risk. But realistically, I mean, it doesn't matter, right? I made a video a couple months back discussing all of the better tech plays that failed. There were a lot of people who watch my ICP videos who were not particularly pleased with that take, but ultimately that's reality, right? And so while I'm super bullish on ICP, and I do think the better tech wins more often than not, generally, it is not a guarantee that, oh, we have better tech, so therefore we will win. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that need to happen there. So, what are my thoughts on Deep Book? We can take a look at that. Maybe we'll do that after we kind of take a look at the SUI chart overall. Happy to do that. I think you do. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I really enjoy and support ICP, but one thing I don't want to do, and there's a lot of people who give me a hard time for it, but one thing I don't want to do is be delusional, right? Because if I'm delusional, then you guys might be delusional because you're listening to takes that realistically aren't that valid. And then that's just not good for anybody because everybody loses money. And obviously I do not provide financial advice, but I do know, and I do recognize the fact that there's a lot of people who listen to my opinion and, may take my opinion at some level into their kind of how they view the world, right? And so even if they still are doing their own research and making their own decisions, doing all that type of stuff, it still can it can still be negative. And for really more important than anybody else, I don't want to lose my own money, right? You guys are obviously responsible for your own money and you need to make your own decisions, but I don't want to lose my own money. So I have to keep it realistic if I'm not going to be losing a bunch of money. So I think, making understanding the upside, but also being cognizant of the downside is really important. So it's Tyler related to James Wynn. He might be, I don't know. The whole James Wynn saga, for anybody who's been following, that's kind of nuts too. Once adoption really goes mainstream, stability and utility will be what's left. I agree. What mainstream looks like, I still have no idea. Is this a chain made by, because I was looking, if the stablecoin bill goes through in the US, that I think it was Chase, Wells Fargo, and Citibank are all going to be combining to create like a stablecoin and very likely probably their own chain to trade that stablecoin on. So unfortunately, there could be the poor reality in which we end up doing going mainstream, very centralized, which obviously wouldn't be great, but that could be the outcome. So what is the deal with James Wynn financial back? Yes, so I don't here's the thing, in this, I think this is actually a perfect way to kind of surmise or whatever that word is, what we're talking about right now as it relates to being realistic, but also being optimistic, right? The whole James Wynn saga, he's blown an F ton of money, which is wild to me. But let's be real about what we're working with here, right? We know that the crypto market is heavily manipulated. So why in the world are you taking such a massive trade out in public, out in the open? All of the market makers, it would not at all shock me if some of the largest market makers got together and were like, hey, do you guys want to make $100 million? Great. Let's all just go in on it together and we'll split it. How is that not an unreasonable, I understand, I'm not here to opine on the ethics of that, right? But how is people not understand that is probably what happened? So, I mean, it's wild to me with the whole James Wynn thing. I get it. And who knows, maybe it's a psyop and he's I'm going to lose $100 million to wake people up to the fact that the markets are manipulated. I don't know. I don't think it's going to change anything. I just think it's kind of ridiculous. But let's see. What do you think about the resistance that TARS AI is getting at the entire time? Previous support is future resistance, right? Yes. I don't know if I'll be going over TARS today. We can take a quick look at it maybe. TARS is one that, again, has done quite well for me too. But yeah, TARS is another good one. I think that one will continue to go. That one is one that I think in an alt rotation would really, really run quite hard. But that's one that's kind of dependent on something like that. Hyperliquid Hyperliquid's been doing insane volume. It's crazy. And one thing I did see on X was something related to doing gray pools, essentially pools where people can't see what people are going bidding or what people are investing, betting, or whatever on chain, to kind of prevent some of this market manipulation. I don't know. I still think it's going to happen. I think they'll probably find a way around that, particularly because centralized exchanges can still see their order book and they know where things are. But it could help potentially in a James Wynn type of situation. 100%. And that's realistically what people in crypto need to understand is mainstream adoption isn't it's not a thing that happens because of reasons and stuff. It's very, very simple. When it makes sense to do it, it will happen. Quite simple as that. So that's the kind of the way that I look at it. yeah, I just don't think that like the benefits of Web3 are compelling enough for people to actually make the move right now. Now, if we start to get into AI and AI agents, and now AI agents need to be paid and AI agents need to have a way to interact within the world and stuff, maybe crypto, obviously kind of comes to the forefront as a natural solution there. And now maybe at that point, we do hit mass adoption, because if people want to interact in the world of AI, they have to be on the blockchain, right? Again, there's so many different outcomes here. So I'm not saying that is going to be what happens, but it could be what happens. And so, yeah, lots of different kind of possibilities and outcomes here. So let's go on ahead and let's get back to the SUI chart, and then we'll talk about DeepBook, and then we'll do a quick run through Pi and some of that other stuff. But yeah, so SUI here, we can see obviously, another really, really nice run up kind of into that alt season here. Did a decent pullback here in kind of the, February, March, April timeframe. And then we've seen a little bit of some bounce here coming back up. Let's actually just pull some lines in on this one. I think most of my charting's done on BTCC, but anyway, quick plug kind of before we continue along. As you can see here, this is BloFin. I have actually recently started working with the BloFin team as well. BloFin's a quite nice option, I would say. I'm trying to kind of like figure out what I like the best and the exchanges I think are the best to trade on and stuff. Obviously, BTCC we've been working with for quite a while. Just started working with the BloFin team because they do actually have the like grid trading bots. We were working with Femex previously on something like that. I had so many people reaching out about like having hard times getting on and accessing it. And I think it's because it's like an American issue. But anyway, all that aside, BloFin I think is kind of it's obviously a little bit bigger, tiny bit more, reputable from compared to like Femex. Obviously, I'm not saying anything negative about Femex at all. But they're just a little bit bigger and more well established in the space. So working with BloFin, if you are interested, do have that link in the description below. I think it's for the next 8 days. They're doing a 15% deposit bonus. So if you are looking to trade, that's why I wanted to talk to you about them today, because BTCC has been doing 10%. So this is a little bit better of a deal, though it is limited time. It's only the next 8 days. So after that, we'll have to figure out what that looks like. But if you are interested, just feel free to check those in the links below. We can see here kind of recently, we are back above this key level of support. This has been a level of support that we'd held onto for quite some period of time, kind of at this $3.15 range. We kind of had this like major dump and then major pump. This is unfortunately, I guarantee you, liquidated a ton of people. I had a little bit of a SUI long here. Again, I don't get it too crazy on anything, but I got stopped out on this one as well, which is super frustrating when the market does this. But that's just the risk you take when you're trading, and particularly when you're using stop losses. It's just sometimes it be that way, and that's just how it is. I'm not saying you shouldn't trade with stop losses. That's just sometimes how it is. And this is, in my opinion, market makers doing what market makers do, making some free money. So anyway, that's what we're seeing on SUI. I don't see anything changing from SUI. Obviously, we are getting a lower high here, so potentially this could be the start of a little bit of a longer downward swing. I will kind of refresh everybody's memory that I'm very, very nervous holding SUI a long time. I actually don't hold any spot myself. I will just take leverage trade, long or shorts, depending on kind of what seems to make sense at the time. Just given all of the locked up SUI that is going to be getting unlocked over the next several years, it's not something that I'm particularly comfortable being a bag holder of. So to kind of make sure that doesn't happen, I usually just take kind of low to medium leverage SUI trades when it seems to make sense. So potentially here could be a nice place to get in on a long. As I said, I was in on a long, but got washed out on this little nice little rogue wick here. So sometimes it's just how it is. But overall, SUI is still doing very, very well. Continues to be very, very strong in the crypto space. So again, this is kind of like a VC coin. So I think there's a lot of that going on here, and a lot of the reasons why it's done well. Usually VC coins have issues in terms of like, there probably could be something that impacts it a little bit, a little bit on in the future, just kind of like what we saw out of Solana. Obviously Solana recovered very well, but there's plenty of other VC coins that have not recovered really well at all. So, it can be a little bit of a risky play, but given a lot of the momentum that we've seen out of SUI, we're starting to see the ecosystem get a little bit more vibrant. We're starting to see some really nice partnerships being made, particularly around like gaming and collectibles, things like that. I do think that, SUI is one to keep an eye on. But again, I'm always cognizant and always slightly paranoid about the future unlocks that could come. So that's kind of my thoughts there. Let's see what we got. I'm just going to check on the comments because I hate getting super far behind on them. To me, a CBDC or blockchains will use behind the scenes, institutions, corporations, NFTs, and tokenized real world assets. AI will run on Web3 and government will try to regulate IMO. Yeah, I think that's possible. I do think that, a lot of like tokenized, this is why I've actually always been marginally bearish on RWAs, is because while they're cool, I don't actually believe that we will see most of the upside that RWAs have to offer. I think institutions will see most of the upside that RWAs have to offer, which is why I've been kind of marginally bearish on RWAs. So let's see. Got onto Femex using a VPN. Or didn't need a VPN. Yeah, so that's the thing is like, it's quite a difficult sign up process. It's nice that you don't need one after the fact, but I don't know. I just feel like the barrier to entry is just really, really high on something like that. So yeah, BTCC is nice. The main reason I was using Femex was for the grid trading bot. But now that I've kind of seen that BloFin has that, definitely I think kind of preferable towards BloFin. And one thing that I will tell you guys is I'm actually working on testing out this bot on BloFin that is done pretty well. So maybe more on that here in the future. I'm trying to kind of work out if that's something that I can become like an affiliate for and maybe introduce to you guys. Again, if you're interested, no worries if not. But I'm putting my money in there to kind of see how it performs. The historical performance has been pretty compelling. So I wanted to kind of dump some of my own money in, make sure that it seems reasonable before I kind of bring that to any of you guys. So maybe more on that here in the future, but at least for right now, things looking hopefully pretty good there. Yeah, it sucks, but that's the risk you take when you trade. Just sometimes stuff like this happens. This is also why I tell people don't go crazy on leverage, right? Like I like leverage trading. I've actually done quite well doing it, but this type of stuff happens. So if you're being dumb, like you can wreck yourself off of some kind of somewhat normal market movements, right? Like this is not uncommon. So you just have to be careful, make sure you understand what you're doing, you know what you're doing. If you don't understand leverage trading, don't do it. I would say, there's demo accounts on both BloFin as well as BTCC. So if you want to use the link below and sign up, you can just use the demo trading and kind of get your feet under you that way as well. So I've not talked about AI16Z yet. We might get to that here in a second. Don't really talk too much about meme coins. I think AI16Z, the AI trade hasn't come back too much yet, but I'll let you know kind of what my thoughts are there. Sonic, yes, I'll talk. I actually made a Sonic video a little while back. I think Sonic's interesting. I'm always, again, marginally skeptical because Sonic used to be Phantom. Phantom was one that kind of made its run last bull run. And so usually when they rebrand, I get marginally skeptical. But ultimately, and here you guys can have some of my my pessimistic thoughts on the crypto market. But generally, I'm a little bit frustrated and annoyed with L1s in the sense that, like, I think all of them promise the exact same thing, right? We're going to do a bajillion transactions a second that all finalize instantly, and it's all going to be completely decentralized, and you're going to be able to run 18 NASDAQs on chain and all. It's like, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, you and everybody else. So I'm a little bit kind of jaded towards L1s, I think, just because it's like everybody says the same thing because that's what people want to hear, right? And so a lot of it comes down to marketing and speculation and hype. And so that's why I kind of generally, other than like Ethereum and maybe Solana, obviously the people that win will win huge, but I also think there's going to be a lot of losers. For those of you who remember things like Polkadot, right? I mean, Polkadot, if you look, is still down like 90% from its highs. It hasn't really seen that resurgence come back, right? And so I do think that there's going to be a lot of L1s that do that. And so much of it is just going to be on execution of the team. And so I'm just kind of at the point where I don't really want to kind of take that bet right now. When they kind of make it over that initial hurdle and we start to see some real adoption, think ETH, BNB, Solana, those types of things, that's when I start to get a little bit more involved. I'm just a little bit more, two things. One, risk averse that way. And I also, two, just don't care too much to be like super, super deep in the weeds on L1s, because realistically, they all promise the same thing. So from a technological perspective, they basically all do the same stuff. And at that point in time, it's just execution of team. And I don't feel like that's without being like super, super deep in it, I don't think that that's something that you can realistically accurately predict. I think that's more of a luck-based thing. So that's kind of my thoughts there. Let's see. Ethan, yeah. So when I figure out kind of the other grid trading bot, I'll let you guys know kind of how that ends up working out. But I might do a grid trading bot here, just kind of like a how-to type of video. So I could do that as well. I mean, I really hope that ICP will be the rails that Web3 runs on. I think the tech is there, but again, adoption is a whole different question, and we have not seen that yet. So that's kind of the main thing that we're going to be looking for. Yes, this is what. So Jason, I've seen several comments in my comment section talking about Zebek or whatever it's called. This is one that I'm actually going to be making a video on. Definitely within the next week. Might do it tomorrow, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But definitely within the next week, I will be doing a video on Zebek Network, or however you say it. Probably step one of figure out how you actually pronounce it. But let's see. I agree about the L1s. Dominic did say that ICP is getting ready to 10x TPS soon. I think it's going to blow us away when it does, just my opinion. Yeah, so my thoughts here with the 10xing TPS, in my mind, I read that as I think Caffeine is going to 10x TPS. Is kind of the way that I read his tweet on that. I could be wrong, but that's kind of how I read that tweet. So we'll see. I love the conviction on his part from that, but yeah, no, I do think that if Caffeine does well, it will do very well, and it could be pretty insane. So definitely have a decent stack of ICP that I'm not planning on getting rid of. So let's see. Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, I'll do that type of video, like how to set up a grid bot. We can discuss kind of, what things to think about, what things to be careful of, all that type of stuff with the grid bots. So I actually live in the US. So yeah, US has been a little bit of a crypto laggard so far, but I think we're starting to see that change, which is good. I'm definitely happy to live here, relatively speaking. So cool. So let's move on and let's take a look at Pi real quick. We're going to be working through kind of all the big ones we said we'd talk about today. Maybe BloFin doesn't have Pi. All right, fine. We'll just do it on BTCC has Pi. I know that much. Okay, cool. Yeah, so we'll take a look at Pi. This is kind of, this is it. So we've, in my opinion, have not seen really great moves from Pi. In my opinion, this kind of appeared to very much be kind of an orchestrated kind of pump and dump from the Pi team. We are seeing a little bit of a descending trend line here, I guess, ish, maybe. We'll see. But if that were the case, we do have a decent level of support here. We saw it as a support here. It was a resistance here. It's now a support again here. Potentially, if we see another run here, we could see a run back up into this like $1 to $1.20-ish range, depending on how quick it moves. But realistically, there's a lot of pessimism. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of concern as it relates to the Pi network right now. And so this is one that, again, I'm not holding any because I think that there's going to be a lot of concern and there's a lot of fear. But I do actually, I do trade the Pi coin. I do do low leverage trades generally, longs and shorts, depending on kind of which direction I think makes the most sense. But longer term, and this is something that I do think, and this is why I still kind of keep some semi-constant eye on the Pi coin right now, is because right now there's a lot of things going on where you have kind of a two-sided problem, right? You've got a platform that says it's got good tech with no users, and then you've got, in Pi's case, in a much more rare situation, you have a platform with a ton of users and maybe not necessarily anything to do on it quite yet. And I think Pi finds itself in that second camp. And in my mind, that's a much better camp to be in, because I think, as we've seen quite clearly in crypto so far, finding the actual user adoption is incredibly difficult. And so the fact that Pi has 4.5 million captive users on their network, and there actually are a lot of people using it in various ways right now, that's very bullish. Now they just need to essentially kind of work on the product. Obviously, there's a ton of FUD around like the KYCs and the like dropping Pi coins to people. I think there's so much FUD around that because we've seen this happen. And there's a lot of people that have seen this type of thing going on while they still haven't actually been able to like cash out their coins. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of issues happening right now with the Pi coin. So I think this is something that, again, over time, I think we will need to track it. This has a ton of retail adoption. I think it's got a ton of users that wouldn't normally be in crypto as well. So I think there's a lot of reasons to why Pi and how Pi could do very, very well. But again, this is one that I think is going to be more of like a speculation alt season type of play, and it could do incredibly well if it does. So that's just a reason why I'm keeping kind of a little bit of an eye on it. Alrighty, so let's go back and let's take a quick look at XRP. We'll wrap it up there in terms of kind of some of the coins I want to talk about today. We can go over any other like questions, thoughts, feelings, whatever that people have. But then from there, we might wrap it up. We've actually been going at this for an hour already. Time flies when you're having fun. So cool. Okay, so I don't want to do that. I think all of my charting for XRP is on BTCC as well. But you can see a little bit of a trend line here. Can't really see much of a trend line here. I think it's fairly clear to see that like there's a bit of a level of support here. So we're seeing a bit of that. Obviously, there are some breaks that we have seen below this, but XRP honestly looking really, really nice. I have kind of expressed my concerns and doubts about XRP in the past, but obviously, the price does kind of speak for itself. It's held up incredibly well. I do actually think a lot of the centralization on this coin. Oh, actually, hold up. Boom. There we go. Okay. Now you can actually see what I'm looking at. I do that more than I should probably. Anyway, here's a distinct trend line I was talking about. Here's the support I was talking about. Here's kind of the other things that have happened. Like, this is not a strong support. Again, in my mind, it would not surprise me at all if these are all just rogue wicks by market makers looking for liquidations. This is the only one that seems to be a somewhat legitimate move, but again, I digress there. XRP's held incredibly well. I mean, this is the really only coin that's held up as well as it has through all of the pullbacks that we've seen. It's done very, very well. It continues to do very well. We might see another move back up to the upside. Hard to say for sure. In my mind, the biggest existential threat to XRP is, well, I guess it's twofold. So maybe there's two biggest existential threats to XRP. One, stable coins. In my mind, XRP was kind of created pre-stablecoin. So the stable coins are an innovation that I think has maybe caught XRP a little bit flat-footed on that. Two, institutions. Not 100% sure why institutions would use XRP when they could just essentially make their own. I see kind of the issuance of a stable coin by Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, Citi, the one that has kind of been speculated on if the regulation passes in the US. That type of thing to me is also very much an existential threat to XRP, because I think institutions, especially with the fees we're talking about here, like, we have to remember the Swift network processes like $450 trillion a year. Even if you're just taking like 1 basis point of that, that's still like, I think that's like $45 billion. I don't know. Math's hard. I think it might be $45 billion though. Like, that's a lot of money. And I don't see banks being super willing to just be like, especially with that amount, to just be like, yeah, it's fine. We'll just use something else. So I don't know. I do think kind of the the risk for XRP is twofold. Obviously, you can call me an XRP hater or whatnot, but I do understand the math in terms of like how XRP gets to $10 a coin, $100 a coin, whatever wild number people want to throw out. I see how it gets there. I do think that, like, again, you're working in an institutional arena. The same reason I don't think RWAs are going to be seen, or that the success of RWAs is going to be seen by retail. Kind of the same reason I don't think XRP or like, essentially international institutional transfers will be benefited by retail. Because let's be honest, XRP is primarily retail at this point. So that's kind of my thought with that whole kind of situation. But I mean, flowers to XRP, right? I mean, they've done very, very well, held up super, super well. So definitely the best altcoin of the cycle so far. I think that's pretty comfortable to say. Maybe not from like a pure returns perspective, but from like a risk adjusted returns perspective, or like a maybe volatility adjusted returns. Very, very, very strong. So anyway, let's see. I'd like to know if it makes sense to keep on mining Pi. I've got like 10K locked up. My total keeps going up, but no coins are accessible. I think this is the core. This is the core of the issue here, in the sense that, like, people keep mining Pi. The amount of Pi that you can mine keeps going down, so it kind of gets like less lucrative over time from like a time perspective. But obviously, there's not really any cost incurred on mining Pi, so that's not a big deal. But yeah, I think like the coins not being accessible and like the very slow and limited rollout of the Pi network is like super frustrating to a lot of people. And from everything that I've seen, like in my Pi comment or my Pi video comment section, things like that, is very, very much like people being pissed off that they can't get their coins. So yeah, I mean, it's difficult. If it makes sense to keep mining, I don't know that I have a good answer to that. From the time perspective, I mean, I don't know. To me, it's one of those things where it's like, it probably can't hurt, right? It may not help a whole lot, but it probably can't hurt. Unless like, yeah, I don't know. Probably can't hurt, but I don't know. It's, I can't trust Pi. Yeah, I get it. I'm not gonna be the one like coming to Pi's defense here. Just because I think that a lot of the communication's been bad. I think a lot of how they've handled a lot of these situations, the lack of transparency, like all of it doesn't look particularly good. And like, it's not even hard to do some of this stuff in terms of like just communicating, right? Like, for example, if we go back and we take a look at the chart here, like, is this not just like completely obvious that this is a pump and dump? Like, to me, it looks pretty obvious. But the thing that's frustrating about this is like, I don't even think that the team has like come out and confirmed that they weren't a part of it. So like, two things: one, they either were, and they can't come out and say that they weren't part of it, or two, like, they just are apparently really bad at PR and communications, and like can't figure out that like you should tell people what happened, or maybe what happened here. I don't know. So it's that type of thing that's kind of frustrating. Same reason I have issues with ICP, because their marketing is like horrible. I have issues with Pi because I think their communications strategy is a little rough. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at with Pi. Again, I still think I'm always, as I'm sure many of you who watch the channel are aware, I'm all about like the risk adjusted returns, right? Like low relatively risk for high relatively rewards. I think Pi still probably fits in that camp, right? And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of these discounted prices, is because the fear, the uncertainty, and the doubt are all probably close to all-time highs, and that's why price is close to all-time lows. And so that's why I think like, if you believe in the team and you think the team can deliver, and you think that massive audience that they have built and have some relative level of engagement with continues to like be successful, I mean, this is like a no-brainer play, right? So that's just kind of the way that I view it. Obviously, if they don't deliver, then it's going to go to zero and it's going to suck and people are going to lose money and all that type of stuff. But that's kind of the way I look at it. So they show me the ad for Royal Match. Yeah, Royal Match must shell huge money because I see that ad everywhere. It's insane. But yeah, and let's see, Mitch. Really appreciate your point of view with TA and market sentiment. Gotta go work on your trading bot. Yeah, no, feel free to do it, Mitch. I personally love trading bots. They're realistically like, especially with grid trading bots, they're not that hard, really, because so many of these softwares. Actually, maybe let's just do it right now. I don't think I have any money in the BloFin account yet, but I think I could probably go like I'll go make the grid bot like right now, and I can show you. It's super easy. But yeah, anyway, see you later, Mitch. If you want to come back to this, if you have to go right now, I can show you. But you can see here, you got signals. So if you have like some proprietary signal or something from TradingView that you want to trade on, you've got that. Here's the futures grid bot. You can set here, like, what are we doing? So right now, this is going to be an ICP or XRP futures grid bot. So if you want to set the lowest price at $1 and the highest price of 5, you want to do 100 grids. Let's just say here you can see here's the price and here's where all the buys are going to be and here's where all the sells are going to be. For those of you who don't know how grid bots work, as price goes down, so right here effectively you're sitting 50% cash, 50% XRP. As you go down, you buy more and more and more XRP till you eventually hold 100% XRP, and as you go up you hold more and more and more cash and less XRP until you would hold eventually 0 XRP. So basically how a grid bot or a grid trading bot works is you want it to affect like the best way that you could trade the grid trading bot is if it immediately went down to here, immediately went up to here, immediately went down to here, immediately went up to here. Right now, of course, if you knew that was going to happen, you would just sell all here, buy all here, sell, and you wouldn't do like the DCA strategy. But we don't know that. So that's why it makes sense to do a grid trading bot, because as it goes down, you buy. And of course, it places sells as you go down. And then as you go up, you sell, placing buys on the way up. So grid trading, really cool strategy if you're interested in that. But yeah, that's kind of like a quick way to do it. You can see here's how much you would invest. So if I want to put in like $1,000 and I'm doing 3x leverage, then I'm actually doing $3,000 in leverage. I would say, unless you really understand what you're doing and do the math, I would just don't use, like, you don't have to use leverage. Just boom, you could do it straight up. Because the problem is if you just do 1x leverage, which is basically no leverage at all, right? Then you can't ever get liquidated. So even if you go down here and you get to this bottom here, well, yeah, XRP's at $1 and that might suck, but you still hold all of your XRP, right? But if, like, for example, right now we're on 3x leverage, you would get liquidated down here at this point. And now you're going to be getting to the point where if we dip here and then come all the way back up, you would have eventually made profit on all this, but since you were trading leverage, you've now been liquidated on all of these. And so now as you go up, you're essentially not cashing in on the gains that you would have otherwise. So be very, very careful with leverage, particularly on grid trading bots, unless you really understand it and kind of get the nuance of what you're doing. So anyway, that's kind of a quick and dirty lesson on on how to make a grid trading bot on BloFin. But I mean, it's fairly similar through a bunch of other different trading platforms. I find like these really easy. I actually, before some of these types of abilities came out, I was actually paying money every month to use like a third-party software to make a grid trading bot. So really, really nice that these are actually free now. So like I said, if you're interested, link in the description below to BloFin. You can go check it out, get it set up, all that type of stuff. And then that other bot I was telling you guys about earlier, it is also a version of a grid trading bot. It's done really, really well. It actually does use some level of leverage, I think. But it's actually like, it's a Bitcoin grid trading bot that's outperformed Bitcoin. So pretty impressive. So again, I'll keep you guys updated on that. I want to make sure that it like passed the smell test and all that type of stuff. And it's not anything like unusual or sketchy going on. So anyway, I believe in Pi community. Yeah, and that's the thing, and that's ultimately what it comes down to, Ronald, is like, as long as you believe and you believe in the project, you believe in the founders, you believe in their ability to execute, you believe in the community to continue to stay convicted, at least to some degree, it's not a big deal, right? I mean, right now would be a fantastic time to buy Pi if that is something that you believe in. Now, of course, not financial advice. That's just my opinion. It could be a terrible time. It could be a terrible time to buy Pi if it continues to go down, right? And the community or the team can't execute, and the community gets mad and abandons them and all that type of stuff. So anyway, just something to think about there. Yes, also, thank you, Limbo Baggins. Yeah, please do hit the like button. Help the stream get out to more people. Might be wrapping up here in a second, but want to just answer some questions that you guys have. I've been mostly through the coins I want to chat about today. I think hopefully you have a pretty decent understanding of kind of what's going on in the alt market and what some of the benefits could be, some of the drawbacks, all that type of stuff. Vikey, yeah, Simple. I'm pretty bullish on Simple. Obviously, I had that video come out a couple days ago. Yes, it was a sponsored video to clarify for anybody. But actually, yeah, I've put a pretty decent size bag into Simple. For those of you who don't know, any of you who have seen or watched Invest with Doc, he is one of the guys in the Simple team and running the Simple project. So obviously, I have a pretty good relationship with him. I've spent a decent bit of time with him over the past probably several months. Well, actually, probably close to a year at this point. And we actually just spent a bunch of time in Vegas. Met some more people of the Simple team. Really liked all of them, and so with that, I decided to do a decent bit of a buy. So again, obviously you need to understand your own risk. Obviously the risk to me definitely seems minimized a little bit because I know them. And so I feel comfortable with that. You may not know them. And so if you don't, that can of course, factor into your decision-making process in terms of whether you're interested or not. But of course, it is a very, very small project. Very, very small projects are usually the most risky. So just know that nothing here is at all guaranteed. That it wouldn't be investing if it was. Investing by definition carries risk of loss. So that's kind of how I look at it. But overall, I just think that it was worth taking a shot. I like the guys. I think they're good. I think they're smart. I think they're, I trust in their ability. So anyway, that's enough for my my Simple shill. But yeah, definitely keeping a close eye on price there. Hopefully it continues to do well. But like I said, I like the guys. I'm not planning on selling that anytime soon. I think it can do quite well. So we'll see how it goes. But anyway, that's kind of what I got. I think there were some other questions. I kind of don't really want to scroll up and try and find them. I want to keep you guys all entertained. But if you guys do have any questions that you want me to address directly, just feel free to drop those again. I'm happy to go over whatever. But I think hopefully, you guys have seen kind of the big picture of where I think the crypto market's at, where I think we could be going over the next 3 to 6 to 9 months. A lot of the different things that are going on there that we could potentially see institutions. Actually, let's go look at Circle really quick, just because I want to show you just how insane this has done. Circle stock price. Insane stuff, guys. It's ridiculous. Okay, which one is it? Circle. All right, well, I told you I wouldn't make you guys wait, but here we go. Here we are. Okay, yeah, here it is. Circle Internet Group. Yeah, just ridiculous. So, okay. Pull this up. Okay, here we are. So yeah, so basically Circle's at $107. It was up 30% just on Friday. Here's the 5-day chart. So you can see here, no, thank you. IPO out at $31, goes all the way up, basically immediately teleports to $75 is the first one they track. So, I mean, the bidding frenzy on this was absolutely nuts. And then it's then essentially continued to go up. It peaked out at about 122 is what it looks like. It's now down at 107. But I mean, just absolutely wild moves from Circle. And if you look at some of the things like the PE 1300, like insane. Obviously, I'm not going to be buying right now. 1300 on PE is like ridiculous. Like the S&P average, I think is like mid 20s, maybe low 20s. So yeah, 1300 PE ratio is just ridiculous. I'm half tempted to just go buy a whole bunch of puts because that's kind of like leverage trading in the stock market. But yeah, I'm kind of tempted to go buy a whole bunch of puts because I do feel like this is not at all reasonable. But stablecoins are also insane. So we could realistically see the profitability rocket over the next several quarters, which brings this ratio back down to reasonable. But at least as it stands right now, definitely an insane valuation. And I do think there's probably more speculation than anything going on right now. So we can see after hours up to 115. So, I mean, this thing has been on an absolute rocket ride. I'm really upset because I knew that the IPO was coming. I was going to get in on some, definitely not at this point. So, but yeah, just absolutely insane moves coming from Circle. You're super welcome, Jason. Like I said, look out for that. The Zebek video coming along. That'll be happening here soon. Like I said, probably within the next week. But yeah, anyway, that's I think that's what I got for today, guys. I don't see any other questions coming in, so I'm probably just going to wrap things up here. Per usual, a like, subscribe, all that type of stuff really, really helps me out. Kind of on the perpetual chase to grow the channel and help more people learn about crypto. Hopefully you did find the information in this video useful. If you did, like I said, like, subscribe, also comments, comments do really help. The biggest things that you guys can do to support me really is kind of like and subscribe. Tell somebody if they're into crypto and you think this would be useful information for them. So anyway, thank you guys very much. And I will go on ahead and play out the outro. So anyway, thanks guys. We'll see ya.